Next up, Pete Hoekstra from the west side of the state, where for the past 18 years he has served as a congressman. During his 9 terms in the House, he lists as accomplishments his involvement in the Republicans' 1994 contract with America, serving on the Education, Labor, Budget, and Intelligence Committees. In fact, he is the ex-chair, current ranking Republican on Intelligence, where he helped institute reforms suggested in the 9/11 Commission report. Before going to Washington, he spent 15 years working in product and dealer development, as well as product management at Herman Miller Company, where he rose to become Vice President of Marketing. Seeking the Republican nomination for governor, Congressman Pete Hoekstra.
Hey, thank you. 1956, my parents came to America for exactly what we have in front of us here tonight. The opportunity and the freedom that America promised them. In 1945, they'd been liberated by American, Canadian soldiers after having been under Nazi occupation for 5 years, the longest part of Europe that had been under Nazi occupation. In 1956, things still didn't look very good in Europe, so they said, yeah, we need to go somewhere else. We need opportunity for our kids, the same types of things that you're looking for and fighting for each and every day. And they had heard about America, but they had experienced American soldiers and American troops, and they said, we're going to go to America. That's what they did. They came with a 10-year-old, a 7-year-old, and a 3-year-old. They had the opportunity to see us go to school, go to college. They had the opportunity to see me come back to West Michigan, work at Herman Miller, move through the ranks at Herman Miller. And in 1992, I ran against a congressman, the chairman of the National Republican Campaign Committee, the 3rd or 4th most powerful Republican in the House of Representatives. And I ran for one reason, same reason that many of you are here today. You believed that government and elected officials had forgotten who they worked for. So you had this 38-year-old kid, no political experience, said, this isn't right. I don't like what's going on, and I'm going to run. Think I can take my vision to Washington, and I think I can beat the guy Vanderjack. People discounted it. No way it'll happen. We got on a bike, we rode around the district, we connected with people, and on primary night, I beat him, outspent 15-1. Michigan's people like yourselves said, Michigan's future is going to begin with us, regardless of what the political pundits say. A wonderful opportunity. It's the same thing that we face today. Michigan's future is not going to begin in Washington. I know, I've watched. It's not going to begin in Lansing. It's not going to begin with the governor. It's going to begin with the people that are sitting in these chairs today. You will turn Michigan around. We just need to give you the freedom and the opportunity to do it. And thanks to you, you have already started. It wasn't all that long ago that our president came up with the bright idea that he was going to take people from a perfectly safe and new prison in Guantanamo, and where was he going to bring them? He was going to bring them to Michigan because he said, here's a state that has led the country for unemployment for more than 3.5, almost 4 years. They are going to be so hard up for jobs, they will take some of the worst terrorists in the world as their vision for their future. And the people of Southeast Michigan, the people of Northeast Michigan, along with myself and some others said, Michigan's future is a whole lot better than that. The folks that were in Gitmo a year ago, they're still there, and if I can do anything about it, and if we continue to have your help, that's exactly where they're going to stay. 3.5 weeks. 3.5 weeks, people just like you that I've had a lot of interaction with in northern Michigan said, it's going to change. Michigan's future begins with us, not with you. After one of my colleagues came on TV at 4 o'clock on a Sunday afternoon and said, everything that I've said for the last 4 months, I really don't mean. I said I was going to vote against this bill. because it's so important to protect the unborn. I'm going to stand on principle, and I'm going to vote against health care. At 4 o'clock in the afternoon, he said, no, I'm going to vote for it. By Monday morning, he'd gotten the message from the people of the 1st Congressional District, Bart, you ought to really think about staying home. A week later, he announced he was not going to run for re-election. Michigan's future begins with you. You know, the same is true. The same is true when we start taking a look at the economy. You know, I've gone all across the state. I'm doing 100 different jobs, you know, talking to businessmen and businesswomen about what's the barrier between you and growth and more jobs. And Jenny and her bureaucracy, but over and over they say, government gets in the way for us to aspire and to achieve our dreams. Get bureaucracy out of the way. Recognize that government bureaucrats work for you. They don't work for themselves. If you aren't doing well, they shouldn't be doing well either. How many of you are getting a 3% raise this year? State employees are. I'm sorry, that's wrong. Working for the state can be a good job, but it can't be a better job than everybody else, than the deal that everybody else is getting in the state. The second thing is, if we're going to get government out of the way, we can afford to make it smaller. You know, I go around and I talk to all of these businesses, and I love going to newspapers because I say, you know, we got to cut $3 to $5 billion out of government, and that's the starting point. And then they say to me, Pete, how are you going to do that? And then you tell them, look outside your conference room window. What have you done in your business? And they say, oh, we've gotten rid of 1/3 of our reporters. We've consolidated our publication in our printing presses and all of these types of things. And it's kind of like, why don't you demand the same kind of performance out of your state government to rip costs out of there, just like you and others all across the state have been forced to do in your business. And then what we can do is then we can go back and we can reform the business tax, or excuse me, the whole tax code in the state. We have an anti-business tax code. You know, I came out of the business world, and if you tell businesses often enough, we are going to make it hard for you to do business in this state, and we are going to make it expensive to do business in this state, if that's what you promise, and then you implement policies that actually do that, things like the Michigan business tax, it doesn't take long before business people figure out that you're serious. That's why we have the highest unemployment in the country, because we have put in place anti-business rules and regulations and a tax code. Think about it. A Michigan business tax that is complicated and expensive. A personal property tax which businesses pay. Right? They pay it on their plant and equipment. I was down in Southeast here at an injection molder. He buys used equipment because if he buys new, he pays more tax. If we're the arsenal of democracy, our folks should be buying the best equipment in the world, not used equipment. But our state penalizes people for buying new equipment. We have a non-homestead property tax. Everybody says we are a tourism state. We have priced tourists out of this state, especially those who we encourage and want them to build a second home or own a second home in this state by saying, if you live here, we are going to rob you. Get them to live here, and when they buy things, we will rob them with our sales tax. But make sure they come here and spend money on weekends. But you go through this whole tax code, we have to fundamentally restructure our tax code. We have to shrink government, and then we have to get government out of the way. When we do that, you will have the opportunity to bring Michigan back. Michigan's future really does begin with you. Thank you.
Thank you, Congressman.